Tanse, I'm Oji-Cree. Welcome to APTN National News. The Assembly of First Nations winter meeting in Ottawa wrapped up on Thursday. 7 cabinet ministers, including Finance Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne, held a panel discussion with First Nations leaders. During that meeting, they focused on engaging and partnering with First Nations in the economy. APTN's Fraser Needham reports.
The Finance Minister stressed these are challenging times economically, and the government wants First Nations to be part of the solution.
Indigenous partnership is essential to speeding up major projects, unlocking economic growth and strengthening Canada's position at home and abroad. And the only way to do that is to do it together.
Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Rebecca Alty echoed this point of view.
With this budget, we were really working on putting forward measures that strengthen First Nations' economic power and autonomy. We're investing in capacity, expanding access to capital, and making sure opportunities don't bypass First Nations.
Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Galmasti said the government values critical services delivered to First Nations. She explained that's why her department only got a 2% funding cut in the recent budget, compared to deeper cuts in other departments. But at the same time, Galmasti said her department is looking for efficiencies.
We have the task to innovate and transform service delivery. We are doing that by moving into a new mode of offering high-quality services that are easier to access, faster to navigate, in some spaces modernized, where communities are able to receive through a one-window, single approach.
Well, the government is eager to partner with First Nations on certain economic projects. It is clear others are not deemed to be in what the Liberals define as the national interest. Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation Chief Greg Sarrazin asked if the One Economy Act could be used to address the massive First Nations infrastructure gap.
Will you commit to closing the First Nation infrastructure gap through the Major Projects Office, Building Canada Act, or other mechanisms?
And was told politely no by Alty.
It's not quite designed that way, just because it's about more like the Impact Assessment Act and other permitting and regulatory processes. And so a lot of the challenges in developing community infrastructure, that act wouldn't address.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Staying with the AFN, some First Nations are feeling they do not have a seat at the table with the federal government, including with the Assembly of First Nations. Frustration towards both parties was evident at the AFN Special Chiefs meeting in Ottawa on Thursday. However, 3 chiefs representing Treaties 6, 7, and 8 had a closed-door meeting with the Prime Minister. APTN's Savannah Craig reports.
Prime Minister Mark Carney signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith 1 week ago. Some First Nations governments are feeling left out of the equation. Now, some chiefs are finally getting a seat at the table.
There was a few things that were talked about, the pipeline, the MOU between the federal government and Alberta, the water issue.
Chief Vernon Watchmaker was one of the 3 chiefs who were invited to the closed-door meeting with Prime Minister Carney late Wednesday afternoon.
It's been a tough one because we heard many times before the good working together, working more closely with the First Nations, and nothing really came of it. But what we're looking for is that in good faith, like it says in a treaty, in good faith, that we work with you.
But some chiefs still haven't had the chance to speak with Prime Minister Carney.
Chief Jacko, please. We understand.
Frustration over the inability to share concerns with the Prime Minister, a similar sentiment other chiefs have had.
I'm sorry, Chief Diabo. Chief Tamara?
He gets 20 minutes, but we get 2.
Many say they've traveled long,
I come many miles.
waiting for their chance to speak with Prime Minister Mark Carney after radio silence.
We talk about nation to nation. Nobody speaks for my nation but me. My people put me here. I have unanswered questions, and Prime Minister, you told me you're going to come to my territory.
Including Cold Lake First Nation Chief Kelsey Jacko, who was not invited to the Prime Minister's closed-door meeting.
When the Prime Minister says talk to nation to nation, I expect to have a conversation with him
have unanswered emails going to him. He told me he was going to come to my territory 3 times, and it just seems like every time I'm trying to have a conversation with him, I have to fight just to say some words.
With a divisive pipeline project on the table, some First Nations see it as a pivotal time to have their voices heard.
They're going to be building a 400 kilometer pipeline, and they're going to be storing it in my backyard, and we're not going to go anywhere, and we're going to have to deal with it for 100 years to come. Right?
The concern extends to how the sharing of resources will benefit their communities.
We agreed to share this land with you. It also means we shared the resources.
A lot of money just goes to the municipalities back for us, like right next door to us, goes to the cities, go to the provinces, and we're left out of the equations. We're in a housing crisis. We have needs too.
For some chiefs in Treaty 6, 7, and 8, they're also being unheard at the Assembly of First Nations.
We come to this assembly and you guys say it's our meeting. We're still under the colonial approach where you guys control the mics.
First Nations in Alberta haven't had regional representation at the AFN since 2021.
Treaty 8 had decided to pull out of the AFN, and so Treaty 6 and 7 did not want to make a decision in regards to the replacement of the regional chief. And but that's been since some time ago, but it hasn't really been brought to the forefront.
Chief Watchmaker says he hopes the issue will be addressed at the next Assembly of Treaty Chiefs, a quarterly meeting between Treaty 6, 7, and 8 in Alberta. Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Also at the AFN's assembly, leaders unanimously passed a resolution to honor the late Oji-Cree politician and residential school survivor Elijah Harper by one day building a permanent monument of Harper in Winnipeg. National AFN Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak and Garden Hill First Nation Councillor Ronnie Beardy wrapped Elijah Harper's daughter, Holly Harper, with a star blanket during the announcement as she held back tears. Harper is from the Red Sucker Lake First Nation in Manitoba and died in 2013. He is most famously known for saying no to the Meech Lake Accord in 1990 while holding an eagle feather in his hand. The Meech Lake Accord would have excluded Indigenous people from discussions to amend the Constitution, with Harper ensuring Indigenous voices would be heard. Harper served in the Manitoba Provincial Legislature and later became a Member of Parliament during the 1990s. Elijah's daughter had this to say about the announcement.
He raised and instilled in me the values of our people to continue with fortitude and strength, to keep going. The legacy that my father holds is something I hold dear. It was difficult walking, how would I say, being careful because I represented who he was as well, and I was proud to be his daughter. There are so many people out there that I met throughout my time walking around and visiting people, and they all have wonderful things to say about my dad. I do too. I love them. I really miss my dad. He left us too soon. Too soon. He was 64.
And no word yet on when or where that statue of Elijah Harper will be built in Winnipeg. When we come back, we'll tell you about an inquiry into the treatment and outcomes of Innu children in the protection system. Stay with us. Welcome back. The inquiry into the treatment, experiences, and outcomes of INU, the Child Protection System, resumed formal hearings this week, coming virtually from the Ramada Hotel in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. The three-day inquiry began with testimony from officials from the INU Roundtable Secretariat. They testified that education is needed to build capacity so INU-led family services improves outcomes for INU children and families. Researchers and academics also talked about how multi-generational trauma had contributed to poverty, poor housing, addictions, and mental health, which in turn led to poor outcomes for families and children, and how INU-led services must support not only INU children, but the entire family. That is what the INU have been saying for decades.
And we've got the negative connotation that children need protection primarily from their parents, because we're very much into the parent blaming. But they also need protection from the biggest perpetrator of maltreatment towards them is society in general.
30 years ago, when the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples visited Shahajit, the late Rose Gregoire told them, while speaking about social services as it was then called, "We are not stupid. We can do the jobs ourselves. With probably some training, we can certainly do this."
Kim Sullivan, host of our French news magazine Nouvelle National, joins us now. Tanse, Kim.
Hey, Creason.
Kim, you, like many of our reporters, were in Ottawa this week for the special Chiefs Assembly of the Assembly of First Nations. I guess that will be one of your main focuses on tonight's episode of Nouvelle, hey?
For sure, that's one of our focuses. It's so interesting to get to listen to chiefs from all across the nation talking about their preoccupations and their proposed solutions, but you realize that many of the issues are the same, as well as some are so specific to certain nations. So for that reason, we actually focused again this year on talking with 3 different Quebec nations or communities that we have yet to speak to know why it was important for them to be in Ottawa this week. And not only does it allow us to get to know our communities a bit better, but it gives them a voice, and a voice that's not often heard. So it was really interesting. It was fun. And tonight in our roundup, you'll hear about Equinishit, Kitigan Zibi, and Wolf Lake.
This week also comes with winter truly settling in your province. We hear measures are being taken to help out urban Indigenous people facing homelessness.
A cold snap settled in, and we will stay We will stay cold, I should say, well into next week. We're already seeing -27 with wind chill in Montreal. Those temperatures are usually mid-January, mid-February for us. So the city has set up emergency shelters, and the mayor did have a message for our Indigenous unhoused population.
We are feeling that cold too. It will be -21 in Winnipeg overnight here. Winter is definitely settling in. Okay, finally, you have a few stories too that concern funds.
Yes, not funds to buy a new winter coat, which maybe would be good with this cold, but no, a new fund put in place to help First Nation businesses build businesses, and also a story about a community not too sure how their council are using their funds. So 2 very different stories about funds that you don't want to miss. And also, at the end of our show, Creason, we shared a report with you last week about the Abenaki here doing genealogy testing on presumed Abenaki chiefs in Vermont and New Hampshire. Well, they now have this TV commercial airing in Vermont, asking Vermont people to think about Indigenous identity fraud. It's actually quite the campaign, and we have somebody in studio to explain that.
Sounds like a packed show. Thanks, Kim. Nouvelle National is at 6:30 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Thanks, Creason. Stay warm.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We now want to tell you about this week's 3 web poll questions. Over on our website, we ask, Our first question, should the tanker ban along BC's north coast be lifted to allow oil exports? You can answer yes, no, or unsure. Our second question was, do you feel the Assembly of First Nations is representing the priorities of grassroots people? You can answer yes, no, sometimes, or unsure. And finally, our last question was, did you participate in Black Friday sales this year? Yes in store, yes online, both, or no? Go to our website at aptnnews.ca. The questions will be on the right-hand side of the homepage. Mohawk musician Logan Staats is up next to tell us why he wanted to protest against the residential school denialists in BC. We'll be right back. Miigwech for staying with us. Charlottetown -10, Halifax -5. Anujiwak -10 and clear skies. Happy Valley Goose Bay -12. -13 in St. Jovite, Montreal -9. Toronto -2, Ottawa clear skies and -11. Sudbury -5 in flurries, Wawa -5 and snow there. Churchill clear skies -21, Thompson sunny and -19. -11 in Gimli, Winnipeg -10. -15 in Saskatoon, Regina -11. -19 in La Ronge, Meadow Lake, sun's out there as well at -20. -19 in Fort McMurray, high level -21. Calgary -11, Red Deer -12. Vancouver cloudy and 8, Kamloops 7. Clear skies in Fort Nelson, -19 there, Smithers 3. Rock River -22, Whitehorse -14. -22 in Fort Simpson, Fort Liard -20. Tuktoyaktuk -20, Paulatuk -24. Baker Lake -21, Chesterfield -18. And Arctic Bay -16 and clear skies, Iqaluit -9. Our next guest is Mohawk from the Six Nations of the Grand River and is a folk rock musician who has released several albums. Logan Staats is also known for winning in CTV's The Launch in 2018, which boosted his commercial success and got him on tours across North America and Europe. While music is still at the core of everything he does, Staats has since used his voice and platform to bring more awareness to Indigenous sovereignty in Canada. He recently took part in a residential school denialism rally in BC and is also part of the land defenders in the protection of old-growth forests in Fairy Creek on Vancouver Island. Logan Staats joins us now from Fairy Creek. Logan Staats, thank you so much for joining us. I want to first start with where you are right now. As of September, land defenders have once again gathered in Fairy Creek to protect old-growth forests from industrial logging. The RCMP have been making arrests and attempting to dismantle the cougar camp there. Can you tell us why you wanted to be there and take part?
I think land defense for me over the last couple of years has just become a great way for me to connect with my community, to represent my community. You know, it's one of those places outside of music where I just like full-heartedly know I'm doing the right thing without a doubt. You know, and I think there's very few places like that in our lives, you know, but when I'm here, when my boots are on the ground and I'm standing up for the land, I know that I'm doing what Creator wants me to do.
Feels like you're following your heart, eh?
Mm-hmm.
The Pacheedaht First Nation has asserted its rights in deciding how resources in their territory are managed, and that includes the Fairy Creek area there and the old growth forests there. What do you say to that First Nation and its leadership regarding this ongoing issue?
You know, when it comes down to this sort of thing, I always think about my personal feelings and like what I was taught the law is, and for me, the law is always the land. You know, and that's what comes first, you know, so I always try to keep that in my heart, you know, what does the land want? What does the land need? And other than that, you know, I try not to get too involved.
No, I hear you. Where are you at with the RCMP and the rest of the land defenders there? Can you give us an update?
Yeah, there was several arrests, you know, some peaceful land defenders were arrested a couple days ago. They're in the process of rebuilding the camp. And yesterday we had another visit from RCMP and law enforcement. So we're expecting the worst.
Sorry to hear. Switching gears, Logan, you recently took part in a residential school denialism protest involving interim 1BC leader and MLA Dallas Brody and former academic Francis Whittleson. Can you tell us what that experience was like and why you got involved?
Yeah, I think first off, I just don't want to have any part in just normalizing this conversation, having people think that it's okay to even have this conversation, such a despicable, disgusting, profoundly offensive notion, you know. I don't want to have any part in just validating that conversation. I don't think people should even be talking about that. It's harmful, it's triggering, it hurts, you know. But the one thing I will talk about is you know, the elders that stood up, the elders, the survivors who, you know, shared their stories and their tears that day, the 600 people who stood up for the right thing, you know, that was inspiring. That was truth and reconciliation for me, you know. And what I realized is it comes from within. It comes from our communities. It comes from the revitalization of our languages and our lands and all of this stuff. It's all connected, you know.
Have you been impacted personally by the residential school system?
Yeah, you know, I'm from Six Nations. It's affected the whole community. You know, my mom went to Indian day school. You know, it's drastically affected me. So it definitely hit a personal note for me, you know, and it definitely struck a chord for me, you know, and I just want to thank APTN, you know, for giving me the opportunity to hold my truth, because with these far-right media organizations, they tend to twist the narrative, and for them to call me, Tanya Tadak, violent extremists is completely ludicrous. You know, we're both Juno-nominated, Juno Award-winning artists, you know, who are deeply connected to our community and deeply connected to uplifting our community. So for them to label us like that was just a joke, you know.
Our cameras caught much of the disruption between you and 1BC, and some of those party members are calling for your arrest. What do you want to say to them about the messages they were trying to convey that day?
They're despicable, you know? They're despicable, they hurt, they're triggering, not only for me, but for many people in our communities, you know, and I will continue to stand up for our survivors. I will continue to stand up for our elders, you know, and I carry no shame, and I would not change a thing, you know? I feel like I did the right thing in that moment, you know, and trust me, they were pushing us to be violent, you know, and our definition of warrior is the one who carries the burden of peace. And I know that I did that day, and I know I was peaceful.
Finally, Logan, can you share a message with the residential school survivors out there and why you wanted to take part?
Just that you're loved, you know, that I love you, that your community loves you, that you're needed, that your stories are valid, you know, that we hear you, that we're with you, that we support you, and that we'll fight for you.
Logan Staats, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, and please stay safe out there.
Yeah, we'll go.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Friday. TR Wheatley is back with your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News Daytime, have a safe weekend with family, and we'll see you again next week. Next day.